Hey friends, and welcome back to Gardening Suburbia. My name is Amanda, and today I am planting out my tomatoes. I'm officially 7 weeks out from my last frost. My last frost is April 24th. I'm in zone 6B here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I waited one more extra week to start my tomatoes because last season I got too anxious and I started my tomatoes way too soon. Doing that, it's okay to start them sooner. The only problem with that is that you have to go ahead and then up pot them more than you probably would like, which means more soil, more water, and more space, just because those plants can get really large really fast. So instead of having to worry about up potting them more, I decided to go ahead and wait just a little bit longer so that my starts are a little smaller and I don't have to up pot them, hopefully, too much more than necessary. I just wanted to go ahead and real quickly mention to you guys that I am doing a collaboration giveaway with my friend May from Magical Gardens on Instagram. So if you guys haven't checked me out on Instagram yet, please do. We're doing a Instagram giveaway. It ends tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And we're giving away over a dozen varieties of seeds from In My Gardener, Baker Creek. We have some burpee and some botanical interest seeds, as well as we are giving away the Simplified Garden Journal. I've been using this pretty much so far this season. It's really awesome if you're here in the States, which it's open to those of you who are in the States. It has a nice little zone key portion, and it kind of tells you estimated frost for the area. I went ahead and wrote in my estimated last frost and my estimated first frost, and then I went ahead and figured out how many grow days I have total. So right now, as it sits, we have been having some really warm days up in the 70s, and it's still winter. So it's just been a little bit weird, but you never know what Mother Nature is going to do. So she could decide, we're gonna have a frost 2 weeks after estimated last frost, or we could have our last frost 2 weeks before that estimated last frost. So I have 179 grow days, which is important to know when you're growing different varieties. So I am growing loofah this year, which those sea sponge, loofahs that you use in like the shower or whatnot. I'm gonna try to grow those this year, and I'm pretty sure that they have a really long grow time to them. They need a lot of days to actually get to maturity. Let me see. Yeah, and they require anywhere from 150 to 200 frost-free days. So I'm kind of in that range. I could potentially be killing them off if we only have us 179 days and they need that full 200. It's kind of what I love about gardening. It's really up to you as the gardener to make choices, and your environment, your soil, your water, how much light your land gets. All of these are different factors into how successful you can be. But then again, if you have all the right conditions, Mother Nature or the seeds can still decide to be like, no, we're not gonna grow this year. You can do everything right and still not get a plant. So why not experiment? So with experimenting this year, I am growing so many different varieties of tomatoes. A lot of them I have never tried before. A few I have. Last year, in years past, I've never grown cherry tomatoes just because I am not a huge cherry tomato eater. Well, I'm not a huge tomato eater, period, when they're raw. I will eat them in like ketchup, sauce, salsa. Like when they're incorporated and cooked into things, I'll eat them. Sometimes I will eat them chopped on like tacos or something, but I'm not one to go ahead and go in the garden and just pick a tomato off the vine and eat it, although I will be doing that this year just to experiment. Your taste buds do change every few years, so I do like to try some of the foods that I previously didn't like. So planting a whole bunch of tomatoes this year. I went ahead and started my other 6 to 8 week plants last weekend. I didn't show you guys those, but I can go ahead and pop in a clip of how they're looking right now. So with those varieties, I planted a whole bunch of flowers and a couple different types of herbs. Again, a bunch of varieties I have never started inside before. Actually, I think there's only one plant that I've ever, well, one flower that I've ever started, and that was the calendula. Although I did that outside, I sowed it in the soil after the frost. And then I've grown thyme, cumin, and rosemary. But beyond that, I have a bunch of different varieties of flowers that I've never grown from seed. So it's a year full of experiments. As you guys know, I got really excited about all the seeds, and I just wanted to grow everything. So all of the varieties of tomatoes I'm planting, I've got M.I. Gardener's Cherrylicious Tomato, which is pretty sure this is a mix of tomatoes. I'm not really sure, we're gonna find out. This one's an indeterminate. I have the yellow pear tomato, which is also a cherry tomato variety. It says it's tolerant to powdery mildew. I did not have any issues with powdery mildew last year, but I did have issues with blossom end rot, which says that this one is more resistant to or tolerant to. So this one is also an indeterminate variety. And then I have the Paul Robinson. I grew this one last year, and it was probably one of my favorite tomatoes. It has a really like smoky flavor to it. So when it is ripened, it will have green shoulders and a purplish red end or bottom part. This one's also an indeterminate variety. And then I have the Vintage Wine Tomato. This is a 1980s heirloom. It says that this is a sweet and mild tomato, and it makes a good all-purpose variety. This one is also a indeterminate variety. And then I have my Mortgage Lifter tomato. I have heard so much about this tomato, and it's going to be a very large tomato. Some of these can grow up to 2 pounds. That's crazy. So I'm excited to see where this one will go. And it is also an indeterminate. Then we have the crimson or giant crimson tomato. This is also an indeterminate. It says it is a bit of a beefsteak variety with the meatiness, but also the juiciness of a slicer. And this is also a indeterminate variety. I think I tried pronouncing this one on the seed haul video. So I'm not going to try today. This is a dwarf indeterminate variety that is a New Zealand heirloom. It only gets to be about 2 to 3 feet tall, and it has sweet flavor with a delicious red flesh, and it is a good producer. So this one is definitely one that I'm going to be putting into my Greenstalk. I got a Greenstalk original for the purpose of putting tomatoes in it. And this is one that I was for sure going to be putting in there. I'm not quite sure which other ones I'm going to be putting in there, because I think a majority of my plants or tomato seeds are indeterminate, which means that those varieties do not have a set amount of fruit that they will produce. They will just continue to branch off and keep producing more and more while the temperatures allow, and while disease and pests allow them to. So I'm not really sure which ones I'm putting where yet. I will figure it out. But in the meantime, I do know that this one's going to be going into that Greenstalk. The next one I have is from Burpee, and it's the Sweetie. It's also a cherry tomato variety. It's an indeterminate, and it forms lots of small clusters. Again, I am growing a whole bunch of cherry tomatoes this year. Being someone that doesn't really like tomatoes, I've never really seen the need to do cherry tomatoes, but I'm thinking about doing sun-dried tomatoes. I love sun-dried tomatoes. I make a dish in the oven with cubed sweet potatoes, onions, garlic, and Brussels sprouts with sun-dried tomatoes and some olive oil and a little bit of salt and pepper, and it is just, it's so good. So if I can make sun-dried tomatoes, I will be extremely happy. They don't necessarily have to be red tomatoes. Oh, so speaking of red tomatoes, being someone that didn't grow up in a family that grew homegrown food, and only seeing what was provided in the grocery stores, I didn't realize a couple years ago, it's probably 5-6 years ago now, that there were so many different colors of tomatoes, which is probably why I've gone crazy and I buy all of the different kinds. But I went and did a presentation for a local high school in my area with my friend May, and I had all of my seeds, extra seeds, and I was letting the kids in the class pick out their favorite, you know, vegetable to then grow. Their school has a garden at the school so they can grow food. And I was letting them, or asking them what their favorite vegetables or herbs or whatever were. And every single time they looked through the tomatoes, someone would be like, ew, why is that tomato orange? Or can I just have a red tomato? It's just funny that we've kind of been put into this mindset that tomatoes are only red, when in fact, you know, we've got yellows and we've got some fun stripy ones, and we've got ones that have purpley brown green shoulders, and you know, all of that. So it's just a fun thing to think about. So the next one I have is the Gladiator hybrid tomato. This is they're stating it's the hands down the champion of Roma tomatoes, and these guys I think grow larger than, well, they look larger than the typical Roma tomatoes. So the next variety is the honeycomb hybrid, also from Burpee. This is a indeterminate cherry tomato variety that has clusters, gets to be 12 to 15 feet long, and grows large clusters of cherry tomatoes, and they're pretty and orange. And it says it has a touch of honey, which makes sense of the honeycomb name. The next variety is my Verde Tomatillo. I am super excited about growing this. Last year I had to pick up a couple of starts from a local nursery in the Newport, Kentucky area. And one thing I've learned about good Verde, at least from my sister's mother-in-law, she makes really good Verde salsa, and typically when she's picking out tomatillos, she likes to pick the really small ones. So I don't know how large these grow to be, the actual fruit of them. I don't know how large they'll be, but hopefully they'll be a smaller variety. If they're not, it's okay. I just think that the smaller variety has less juice in it. So we'll see how it works out. I may be gifting a few of these to my sister. We'll see. The next variety is Dr. Witchy's or Witchy's Yellow. I've also heard a lot about this variety. And they grow, or they are a heirloom from the late Dr. Witchy or Witchy. And it's a 1 pound glowing tangerine orange fruit, solid and smooth texture, tropical sweet taste, heavy yields, and productive. It's really pretty. It's a yellow tomato, yellow orange, so I'm happy to have another color. Plus, when making tomato sauces and salsas, adding a large variety or a couple different varieties of tomatoes will depth or create a deeper flavor profile for those tomato sauces and salsas. The next one was a free seed packet from Baker Creek. It is Thorburns terracotta tomato. I did see a couple people on a gardening group on Facebook say that this variety really didn't do so well for them. That can have a lot of climate and region and how long your season is and what kind of season you're actually having with weather. All of those things can affect how well a variety does. I think someone said to wait until they are super deep red in color before harvesting, so we'll see how this one goes. The next one is Black Beauty. So this is the world's darkest variety of tomato, so dark that some tomatoes turn solid blue black. And I think it looks really interesting, and so I wanted to grow it. The next one is the Mushroom Basket tomato. I just thought this one had some beautiful fluting on it. One thing to worry about is that it can get rot in different parts of the folds, especially if you get a fasciated blossom. So that's when multiple tomato flowers are grown together and you get multiple tomatoes in one. So you gotta be kind of careful with that. Some people do take or pinch off the fasciated blossoms or the cat-faced blooms, just so that you don't get too much, or you don't get too many tomatoes that are, end up not being good before they even are harvestable. So next one is the Castelluto Genovese tomato. It's an old Italian favorite that has been around since the 19th century. Intensely flavorful fruit are rather flattened, quite attractively ribbed, and eaten fresh or preserved. Again, a pretty tomato. Like, this one caught my eye just because it has so much meat to it and not so much of the juices, which is typically what deters me from eating tomatoes, is all of the juice. And the last one I got is the Amish paste tomato. So this is very similar to a Roma tomato from Amish community in Wisconsin. And I just thought this would be perfect. I don't know how large these get, but if they are a larger variety, much like the burpee one, the Gladiator hybrid, these might make some really good tomato paste. I'm not quite sure. It just depends on how well these do, whether or not I make more tomato paste this year. Last year I did make it, but I think I got like 3 or 4 pint-size jars of tomato paste, and it was just a lot of work for just a little bit of payout. But we'll see. The tomato paste is so good, especially on some homemade pizza. But these are the varieties that we are planting together today. I'm excited to have all of my tomatoes in some soil, because that means we are just so much closer to having plants in the garden again, and I am ready for it. I am gonna go ahead and pop in a quick clip from the garden just so you guys can see how the garden is looking right now. With it being March, it is March 5th. So the garden doesn't really have too much in it besides my garlic and tulips. We planted out some onions together before, or I think it was in the fall. I'm not sure that those did so well. One of you guys actually suggested an update video, so I may put that in this video. I don't think I updated on the onions. Hey friends, so as you can see, the garden is a complete disarray. So a lot of things are still in dormancy, like the fig trees. I have 2 Chicago hardy fig trees right here. This is going to be going into their 2nd season. I did have them covered with this straw, but I removed that and added some fertilizer just to kind of wake them up a little bit. Got a lot of random things popping up. I think this is garlic and a few onions. I have some crocus that is starting to pop out of the ground. This is also some ranunculus. We have one single little bulb or head of flower actually showing up currently. But a lot of things are pretty empty because they were all annuals. So we don't have many perennials. I think I have some parsley here. Shasta daisies, which is like a white daisy. I'm pretty sure this is my chamomile. He looks really happy. And then the garlic Garlic is doing so well. I don't know if you guys can see, I'll prop you down. Yeah, so we have all of our garlic poking its head up. I have about 2 to 3 inches of that mulch still down. I do think that next season I will not be using this, just because it does grow grass. Didn't really think about that when I put it down. But you learn when you do things. So next time I'll make sure not to use that. But you can see how much bigger the elephant garlic is compared to the other stalks. And then in this corner, we have another Shasta daisy that we planted. He's doing really well. I trimmed back all the dead bits on him the other day. And then that is some lavender. And I got these really cute little mushroom guys from Hobby Lobby. I think they were like $2, $3 a piece. Come up the stairs. I still need to get rid of this trellis. So this trellis I got off of Amazon, I think, oh gosh. It was last season, but it wasn't very expensive. But as you can see, it's already super rusty and breaking. I did add some chicken wire onto it to give the plants a little more something to grab onto. Oh, this side. Yeah, this side rusted and broke. So on both ends. So I used a T-post to kind of keep it upright. So that's gonna need to either be shortened and moved somewhere else, and then I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a cattle panel to put here. Have a really nice glorious arch right there. I believe they're either onion chives or garlic chives. I'm not really sure which, but they're coming back really happy. Just awesome. I did have another pot over there, but that one got overturned by my dog, who just, this is his backyard too. And then another Shasta daisy. And then I did cut down my pineapple sage. So hopefully he comes back this year. Pretty sure he is a perennial. But we'll see. He got really large. And then this is actually where our asparagus is. It needs a refresh. The asparagus was along this back edge. And I think these are some leeks from last season that didn't come up for me, but are now looking like they're gonna do something. And just a whole bunch of empty pots. More empty pots. I have some strawberries in this, but they're not looking too great. I'm not seeing any green growth on them. I did go ahead and fertilize these pretty good, and give it a little fresh top of new soil. But they're not looking like they're doing anything yet. I'm gonna hold off on, of course, I'm planting anything in this just to see if it does anything. But for right now, this is what the garden looks like in here, let me show you the tulips real fast. So in this bed is my tulips, and I have anime that we planted out together here. I don't know if they're going to do anything. I think the squirrels might have dug them all up. The squirrels did try to dig up a few of these bulbs, and I'm not sure if it's just because these are late bloomers that they're not doing quite as well as these ones, because I'm pretty sure these are midsummer or early summer bloomers. But we do have some little flower bulbs that are getting ready to poke out of these guys, which is really exciting because these guys are going to be really pretty. And I think definitely going into the fall of this season, I will be putting more bulbs in this bed because I want to densely pack this guy. This is going to be something special. But we got our very sad raspberry plant, but it looks like he's putting off some leaves. This is the second year for this cane. I actually got these from my sister. She has a couple big raspberry plants, and so I just took some little offshoots with some roots
soaked them and then planted them here last season. So I'm not supposed to prune back these guys this season. I'm pretty sure that these guys will be putting on more fruit or more raspberries this year. I wish I would have thought about it because I probably could have gotten a different variety of raspberry that doesn't have thorns, because this is definitely a thorn variety, but that's okay. So the garden in all of its glory of pre-spring.
So the onions really, I don't think, did too well. I really should have mulched them for them to make it over the winter, but I did not. So you live and you learn. Hopefully I brought enough containers down. I'm going to be doing a method that I found from Jess at Roots and Refuge Farm. She's an awesome lady and I love watching her content. But she likes to kind of really pack in her tomato seeds. And I've been doing this the last few years and it works really well. The tomato seedlings are really resilient. So I will go ahead and pack quite a few seeds per pot. And then once they get a couple of true leaves on them, I will go ahead and kind of pull them apart and then pot them into their own individual pots. If you're only going to be planting 1 or 2 of those plants, I would recommend just planting 1 or 2 seeds per pot, just so that you're not having to go ahead and do more work by pulling them apart and potting them into individual pots after they grow. That way it's less work for you that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these guys separated and just make sure that I have all of the pots that I need, and if I need more I can go upstairs and grab a few. Maybe I'll put all of my tomatoes in the blue pots. That's not satisfying, I'm 1 short. So I guess my dwarf variety will go in the pink pot. And then I need 2 for, and then I need a few for my true lavender and then my sage as well. Okay. So the next step is really to start getting these filled with soil. I'll fill them up pretty much and make sure that it's kind of pushed down so that there's not any large air pockets. So I know for the Verde Tomatillo I'm going to be planting at least 4 seedlings because you need at least 2 plants for them to pollinate each other. Yeah, so this is most likely not a variety of soil that I'd be using again. I literally just found a nail in this. This looks old. And it has a lot of really large pieces of bark and mulch. Typically, I've seen people who will go through and sift their soil. I don't really have the means to do that right now, so I'm just kind of picking through the soil and trying to make sure that at least the top layer where the seeds are going to be germinating from aren't going to have huge pieces of bark, just because I don't want it to hinder them. So my next step is to go ahead and get labels done. I'm gonna go ahead real quickly and water in all of this soil so that it is pre-moistened before I stick seeds into them. Just because the water, adding water to the soil really makes that soil settle a bunch. I don't want the seeds to soak down to the bottom of the pots. All right, so now everything's watered in. I will say that before I seed start, I do typically top water all of the soil before the seeds have been sown. After they've been sown, I do just pour water into the bottom of this tray and like remove one of the cups to give space to water, and then I bottom water. Bottom watering really helps ensure that you're not damaging the seeds. as well as splashing any kind of mildew or anything up onto the leaves, creating disease on the plants. So again, I'm just using these tags for seed starting. Some of them already have names on them. I think I'm gonna let's go red today for all those tomatoes. So for these, since I don't have any determinate varieties, all of my varieties are indeterminate. I'm not gonna worry about writing indeterminate or determinate, but I would recommend if you have determinate and indeterminate to kind of indicate that on the tag. That'll help you kind of decide where you wanna put it outside once it's ready to be transplanted. So on the tags, I'm going to be just writing mushroom basket or the variety. And I'm gonna put whether it's a beefsteak, a Roma, or a cherry tomato on this. So this one is a beefsteak, so I'll put a B for beefsteak. And then on the back, I'll write today's date, which is March 5th. And then I'll just kind of continue on like that. Let's get started on the tomatoes. I'm going to just start plopping these guys in. For all of the cherry tomato varieties, I think I'm gonna like put about 3 to 4 seeds per. Yeah, and so I'm gonna use the end of my Sharpie just to create a little divot in the soil, and then I will then plop a few seeds in. I'm gonna try to stick with cherry tomatoes next to each other, and then beefsteak and then Roma. All of the tomatoes and sage and lavender have been planted. I'm super excited to see these guys start growing up and getting some leaves, having little birthdays. Those seeds that are never sowed will never grow. So all of our tomato seeds are sowed and they will grow. I'll keep you guys updated on how these guys are doing. But if you guys want to go ahead and enjoy any of my videos until the meantime, I'll go ahead and pop one up here for you. But until next time, thanks for joining me.